podcast. Hell yeah, brother. Overload, brother.
Beats by @Smoke M2D6.
Welcome to the cut breakdown of the Seattle Overload podcast, where we will go through all of the Seahawks cuts, their releases of players, which I guess I shouldn't be so excited about because it's a sad day for those guys and their families. But also, we'll look at more exciting, more positively, the guys who made the team, the guys who were signed to the practice squad, and the kind of roster machinations that the Seahawks went through trying to actually build from the initial 53 to the final, still kind of in bunny ears or whatever roster. But before that, a certain quarterback in the news, a certain quarterback, aka Russell Wilson, was re-signed to a massive deal, and that was a 5-year extension worth $245 million, including $165 million guaranteed, which is a lot of money. And I'm annoyed personally by this because there's sort of a narrative that's emerged saying that Seattle wouldn't have paid him that. And I think that's false.
They would have been over eager to sign him to that contract. I think.
Mm-hmm. I think that what Pete and John said in their first press conference post trade made it sound like it was made pretty clear to them by Mark Rodgers and Russ that he wasn't interested in signing back in Seattle.
And I know some people might be thinking, I know there's some debate there, but if the idea was that they didn't want to hitch themselves to another contract with him because it would be ludicrously expensive, if they would have thought, I mean, he just signed an inexpensive deal as far as, new contracts go right now, relative to where the cap is at, the structure of it, the deals that Lamar is probably going to get, so on and so forth. I mean, that just doesn't make any sense to me. So I think they would have happily have paid him that. It's would Russ have wanted to sign that here, and debate debate the reasons why, if he would have signed it here or not, or why he wouldn't have. But I think it was clear that he wasn't going to sign that here.
Like the whole money deal, money was brought up as a sort of subplot to this, but the main factor was Russell Wilson wasn't going to sign the deal. And so we can talk money, but that's a hypothetical at that point. But not only because they traded him, but because he wasn't going to sign the deal. And I think no one's pushed back on that. Not Russell's camp. Whoever you apportion more blame to wanting out to, and I think it's quite clear that Russell was exploring his options, right?
Right.
But Seattle was probably doing their due diligence as well, knowing that their quarterback was pushing for that. But whoever you apportion that blame to, he wasn't going to sign the deal. So
yeah. I mean, everything that we've read, all the pieces that have come out before the trade, after the trade, even from some outlets that I would say we could consider pro Russ on this in this debate or what have you, we're all saying Russ has basically been wanting to get out since that playoff game in Dallas, right? And there wasn't really anything that was going to stop him from doing that. They tried to make it work for a couple more years, and it just didn't happen, and it finally came to a head this offseason.
Yeah. I mean, I don't know why Seattle would fall over themselves to capitulate in some areas and then all of a sudden turn tail on then wanting to extend him. So I think, I mean, I don't know how broad in scope the nature of discussing the contract should be, but for whatever reason, it was just time to move on in his eyes. So, and again, you can debate the reasons for that, but I don't think he would have signed that deal here. It's a good deal for Denver, obviously. I am curious, just as a neutral observer, once the new money finally kicks in, will Russ, because Russ will be older then, and I think he's aging pretty well, like his arm strength and everything. Like there's no bad signs there.
And
Will they
Griff,
try to restructure or extend again? Who knows?
on the point of the aging thing, wasn't it you who mentioned about his possibly changing his mechanics to preserve his arm?
Yeah, I mean, who knows? Is it because he's had a shoulder thing his whole career, like a surgically repaired shoulder. If you've seen it, like even in his rookie year, like on the Real Rob report, Mike Rob did a segment on it, close up. Like he had a dislocated shoulder, and I wonder if if he's talking to some quarterback specialists who say you should start throwing differently so that you put less stress on it long term. And I have wondered, has that only in very minute context has that affected his accuracy? Because I feel like he's more accurate the higher his elbow is, but I don't know enough to really say there. But yeah, I'd be curious to see, does that come to a head? I mean, hopefully not. But yeah, I mean, it'll be. I'm curious to see what Denver does when the new money kicks in. Are they looking at a restructure? Do they pay it? Is Russ still the same guy? I mean, if I had to bet, I think he will be. But it's just you're entering into dangerous waters with any quarterback that gets that old. I mean, we're kind of becoming desensitized to quarterbacks' ages now. But by the time you hit 35, I mean, technically anything could happen.
Because because there's the Brady stuff with that, right, which is just ridiculous. And I mean, there's he's clearly eating the right things. His nutrition is excellent.
Yeah. Sorry, go ahead.
Well, but also the fact that Rodgers has managed to play so well despite his age is sort of I mean, I don't think that's necessarily he's 38 and he'll turn 39 in December, but that's not the norm. Like it's
Right.
You sort of have to remind yourself of that. And maybe with modern medicine, modern nutrition, all that stuff, maybe it does become a bit more of the norm. But like you say, like and Denver is cold. Like there's altitude, but it's cold. And Russell, like you say, when you mentioned the new money, Griff, like that's 2025.
Mm-hmm.
And from 2025 when he's 37 to 2028 when he's 40, his cap number is over $50 million for each of those 4 seasons. So,
right.
I mean, that's crazy. Right. But then quarterback contracts are going up. It's just that's still a lot of
right.
A lot of dough.
Yeah. One thing though, like with aging quarterbacks, a lot of these guys when they start to fall apart, it's not their arm, it's like their whole base, like their legs. Like a lot of those guys aren't athletes. I mean, but Russell Wilson, I mean, he's going to be doing back squats and deadlifts and like hardcore sprint workouts till he's 40. So he'll probably age, his arm strength, all that, the arm talent will probably age fine, barring some like acute injury, which hopefully you don't want any player to get injured. But yeah, it's that'll be interesting to watch. I still feel like Denver had to do it, and if you're going to do it, this is probably the better way to go about it.
I'd also say his improvisational decline, his quickness, that's already kind of happened. Like he's already had to kind of transition to being a less sort of elusive quarterback. There's still moments of elusiveness, but that kind of real quick burst is gone. And I don't necessarily think it can get that much worse. Now, the bigger thing is if he has been figured out by defenses and scheme, which I guess we can go and cover in our preview of the big Monday Night Football clash. But for now,
which will be fun.
For now, good for Russ, but very annoying in my opinion. I think you guys agree to hear the narrative that this like Seattle wouldn't have paid him that. Well, I mean, yeah, there's questions over sort of the ownership and the future of the franchise, but why wouldn't you as an owner want to? I mean, this is an oversimplification, but surely your franchise is more attractive to sell when you have a franchise quarterback in place. Like, come on.
Well, I mean, we're already seeing the effects of that. I mean, we saw like the mock game, how there were still tickets available right up to the day. Like, they have Russell Wilson in tow. doesn't matter what the rest of the roster looks like. They're selling that thing out in like the first 30 minutes. You know, they're selling games out. They're selling regular season games out. Like, you know, but now that he's gone, there's like there isn't as much interest.
If they weren't, if they knew, because they knew this was coming, they knew this was coming in 2019, 2020. If they weren't going to be willing to make that deal that Denver did, which again is a very team-friendly deal as far as quarterback contracts go, then they would have traded him without a second thought last offseason. They would have done the Bears deal without a second thought. They like because they knew this was coming. So the fact that they didn't indicates that they're being stingy with him, which is a general rule of thumb. When you have a quarterback that good, you should be stingy with them. So I just don't see, it doesn't make sense to go, no, we're going to hold on to him for one more year and then we're going to trade him. That doesn't make sense to me. So I don't get the money angle. But anyway.
Yeah. And, you know, I would have had the similar concerns about the money being handed to Russ if he was still in Seattle from that aging perspective. I think, from a neutral kind of standpoint, like you said, Griff, is going to be interesting to see it all kind of materialize. Anyway, cuts. The Seahawks didn't cut. Oh, well, actually, they cut one quarterback, Jacob Eason. They kept the quarterbacks which we expected them to keep. We've dealt with the Geno Smith being handed the starting job, and we'll also have a tape review podcast out on that. But the big surprise cut was Justin Coleman being released. And then you sort of figure out the pieces. He's a vested vet. Oh, he can be re-signed. Oh, there's a few players on the Seahawks who are probably going to go to IR. Oh, they're just trying to create enough space to make some claims and wiggle some stuff around. And Justin Coleman then is back on the roster. So that wasn't really a surprise after all. And then the rest of it was kind of, it went as expected. I guess the big one, and someone who you DM'd me, Griff, on this player, as often happens, and it makes me feel like I've suddenly just stolen your idea. But you DM'd me as I was watching him thinking, this guy looks kind of nice, about Joey Blunt. And I think that was probably the biggest surprise, in the sense that, you know, maybe they tried to smuggle him on the practice squad, but then dealing with just 4 safeties, given that Marquise Blair got released, that is a bit risky feeling. And so Blunt comes in as that 5th dude, and he was great in the preseason.
Yeah, it's cool because I was not looking for Joey Blunt when we were watching preseason 3rd and 4th quarter, right? But he did some things against Chicago where, like, I was just like, okay, that's Blunt, okay, you know, maybe a practice squad guy. And then the Dallas game, it's like, oh, and then the fact I mentioned him, and then you immediately were like, oh, you know, yeah, for sure, I'm seeing the same thing. Sure enough, it makes the team. It's cool that, like, how apparent it was, right? It was a guy that none of us were, you know, thinking of, even cognizant of. And then sure enough, he isn't just like a practice squad candidate. Because last year there were some safeties who were like, oh, this should be a practice squad guy. You know, he straight up makes the team, and he makes the team over Marquise Blair, who granted had a rough preseason, but he did have kind of an okay game against Dallas. Marquise Blair did. But to uproot a guy like Marquise Blair, who has incumbency and experience and talent, you know, that doesn't mean you're a good player, but those things are still going for you, right? You know, last year of a rookie contract, you can imagine a coaching staff want to, you know, see that through, right? Like they're doing with LJ Collier, for example. But, you know, it didn't happen. But so for a guy like Joey Blunt's position to outright boot Marquise Blair off the roster, you know, that's pretty significant. So cool stuff there. You know, he's a fast, shifty guy. I think he has good long speed, and then he's really good change of direction skills. And he takes good angles to the ball, and like in coverage, I mean, yeah, he's got some range. Beyond that, like he wasn't really tested to show like awesome stuff, right? But it's just what there was. It was clean, crisp. You're thinking, okay, you see the skill set. You'd like to see him in more situations. We probably won't see that until, you know, August of 2023. But it's good to have him on the team, you know.
Yeah, and you know, you speak to his athleticism. 6'1", 201 pounds, 4.45 seconds, 40, 38-inch vertical jumps, 6.90 seconds 3 cone, 20 reps on the bench press, 10 foot 7 inch broad jump. Like that's a really good pro day, and it does show up. And I think the Dallas game again, the way you've said that is brilliant. I wasn't watching for him, and I'm like, oh, that's a like smooth way to drop into a curl flat and rock a receiver. Oh, that's someone taking a nice shot through the hole. And actually, every play that he could have made in the Dallas game, he made. Like there's instances where you might miss the tackle, or you might take slightly poorer angle to the ball and not quite get your play made. But he was perfect. Whereas Blair, while he was better in the Dallas game, he was still a bit off. And at this point is give it to the 2022 undrafted free agent out of Virginia, who is getting pumped after plays. Even on there was a screen, and a sort of to symbolize the buy-in, the screen away from Blunt. It was man coverage. His guy stayed in to block. The ball gets thrown to the other side. Barton reads the screen out well, gets thrown incomplete. But Blunt is hauling ass all the way across the field to try and pick up the football in the case that it's a fumble. And it's all about the ball. And Blunt clearly has bought in that sense too. And looks clean in number 35. Really impressive. And I'm really glad for him. And, I'd have to go back and watch his special team stuff. But, pursuit angles, playmaking, wanting to make a play, being pumped up, being an athlete, that all is really important with specials. And there's a great picture of him. I think it was with Deshaun Shared, like hugging him after the it was a kind of obscured shot, but hugging him like after making a play. And I think that's one of Shed's dudes. So repping 35 well.
And one last thing on him, because watching him, like, I really like his movement skills, right? Like we said, when I learned that he was 6'1", I was like, wow, he moves like a 5'9", 5'10" guy.
He looks tiny.
I assumed he was, but it's because he's got the movement skills of one of those, shifty, rangy free safeties, right? But it's in a 6'1" frame. So like that's, to be able to move like that and have that length and height is, an advantage. So just all the more reason to kind of, continue to be intrigued by him.
That number 35 is kind of becoming a little special for Seahawks defensive backs. Deshaun, Ryan Neal.
Oh yeah, Neal.
Yeah.
Ah, there we go. What's Neal in now? Is he in the 20s?
26, I think.
There we go. Yeah, good stuff. So, cut wise as well, we dealt with Blair being released. I think
it's weird he didn't get picked up. Did he get picked up by now?
Blair?
Yeah.
I don't know.
That might be one where teams are happy to wait it out because they, he's got that nasty injury history. They probably, want to get that checked out and by their doctors, and also maybe there's something they can gain by post week 1, but that's unfortunate. We've talked Blair a lot. So the other thing was the cornerback situation. They're dealing with Sidney Jones practice for the first time today after exiting the concussion protocol finally. And he's got a few concussions in his history, so that's slightly alarming. And so it was like, what's going on at corner? Because Mike Jackson made the roster as we expected. I guess we should talk him. Yeah,
that rules. What did you see from him this preseason?
Well, he is a very fluid mover. He spoke about how his track background helps him be, efficient as a sprinter, basically. And that showed up. But again, in the Dallas game, when the play was there to be made, he made the play. And that was in a variety of coverages, like the backside of cover 1, staying square for as long as possible in off coverage, and really looking to like get hands on guys, playing tight ends more aggressive because it's slower but bigger, not getting boxed out, patient enough, and just a gamer, just a competitive dude and who can tackle. My favorite play of his actually came in a cloud force situation where it's like a little attached sort of throw. He's playing cloud to the trips, so the outside underneath in like a, well, it's not cover 2, but the outside underneath on the cover 2 side of the coverage. And he gets an outside release from his one receiver. So to the quarterback, it looks like he's man turned. His nickel, Justin Coleman, to his inside. He takes on the stalk block, but he's firmly inside. And so it's at that point, if Jackson doesn't come off his dude and make the play on the ball, then it's going for a big one. It's a good play to call against cover 2. That's why teams do it. But because Jackson has got his hands on, he started his man turn, but then he's got his eyes inside. He then shot through inside, was quick enough, and also brought his guy down, most importantly. And that's just an impressive play. But throughout, a variety of coverages, variety of techniques, he looked smooth. There's a few plays where you're like, against like the first string dudes, he might have some issues here. I think he's not like a crazy athlete. He's not a bad athlete. He's not a crazy athlete. He hasn't got crazy size. So I think in that instance, I'd just say it's a case of film study, getting all that down, really honing in, and then exposure, confidence, all of that stuff. But great for him to make the roster.
Yeah. There's like a big difference in like you can have a raw skill set, but then you can also be raw in terms of experience. Like your skill set can be fully fleshed out, but you still have to apply it in enough situations. It's just simply a reps thing. And he really does seem fairly developed. It just needs to be put to the test now with more reps, more situations, more different types of receivers, all that sort of thing. And you simply can't, you can't get past being raw until you just get out there. So yeah, I mean, week 1 against, you can't get better if he has to play week 1, right? If Sidney Jones can't go, which I really hope Sid can. But you can't get a better introduction to the NFL in playing like step kick press and defending the red line, defending the sideline than going up against Russell Wilson and Cortland Sutton, right? Like that'll be quite the test. So,
and like you said, Griff, the experience just isn't there. He's only played 4 games, 4 regular season games at the NFL level. He played 2 last year, and then he played 1 in New England and 1 in Detroit, and that's it over the last 3 years. So, and I really liked what I saw last year, particularly in that Lions game, and it's clear, he just carried that momentum over into the preseason, and he looked great. So,
great run for West Virginia.
There you go. Yeah. It's interesting because like with that, you kind of feel a bit concerned about going into a game against Russell Wilson, Cortland Sutton, Jerry Jeudy, et cetera, with a guy that doesn't have that much experience. But he, I don't know. I'm actually kind of intrigued to see him. I kind of, in a weird way, I kind of hope that he actually ends up playing in week 1.
Well,
yeah, I mean, I definitely want to see him just for the sake of it.
Yeah, like we don't know who. It sounds like it's going to be Sidney Jones and then Tariq Woolen, which we can talk Tariq in the next podcast, which will be out probably Tuesday your time.
Because, like, is it not Artie then? I know that'll be.
But Artie got most of his work on the left side. But the other guy they picked up cut-wise, was Isaiah Dunn from the Jets, and he's obviously going to be very new to not very new to the system, because the Jets actually do very similar things in terms of press quarter, half. And from a cornerback perspective, the technique and schematic carryover, it fits from Salah to Seattle.
Right.
Now, it's not the same scheme, so he will have to learn some stuff and the communication and just, move into Seattle, maybe get a nice condo. Is that the right application of that? Condo overlooking the Space Needle? I don't know. But he's interesting because the Jets last year made him the highest paid undrafted free agent cornerback ever in history. Yeah. And I remember him coming out of Oregon State because opposite him was Nashawn Wright, and Dunn then came out with 32-inch arms, which is obviously the big time peak Carroll metric. but he was slightly shorter, and they didn't end up going for him. But his testing 4.38 seconds 40, one and 127-inch broad jump, and yeah, athletic,
And
fast, long, although slightly shorter. Feels more like a left cornerback again because of the height thing, where they seem to be playing big guys on the right, smaller guys on the left. Although Pete did mention that he likes to try guys where they're most comfortable. In terms of, if you think about basketball or something, you have a pivot foot, right? And it's the same with like I used to play soccer, guilty, and I am right-footed. So when you're striking a soccer ball, you're planting with your left foot and then kicking with your right foot. So in terms of, if I was going to play step kick press technique, I'd be better to left cornerback because my left foot is my pivot foot. Okay.
Yeah,
And
they learned that the hard way with DJ Reed last year.
yeah.
exactly that sort of thing. It's all a comfort thing. So I need to watch more of Dunn to see if he's more comfortable on the left or the right.
Another thing, as recently as August 18th, so it's not like this was an early OTA thing or early training camp thing. This was like deep into preseason. Robert Saleh name dropped him as one of the most impressive guys in camp. So they still cut him. You know, they didn't think highly enough of him to keep him on the team no matter what. But Robert Saleh decided to keep him, right? So, decided to talk him up.
Well, that quote was so interesting because Salah's like, he's an incredible impressed man, but in zone he has a few issues that, you know, we basically need to clean up. Paraphrasing, but and that shows, like, I saw a clip where he like is playing way too aggressive in cover 3 to the 2 receiver. Like, they say to midpoint and be as deep as the 2, but he's like taking that to the extreme, and he lets the route in behind him. But like,
the dude's 23 too.
Yeah, it's all coming together, and like, for Salah to say that, and then to factor in the context of the Jets were so deep at outside corner, like ridiculously deep, and deep in general. 7 of their guys, not just Dunn, but 6 other dudes got claimed off waivers. So their 10-man practice squad, they were suddenly like, so if 3 of the first choice guys are on it, 7 of them have gone elsewhere. So that, I mean, that's important. And so to land Dunn, like, it seems like a real savvy pickup, and I need to watch when I get the time, and I can sort of justify. I need to watch do a little Nigel Warrior 2.0 preseason practice.
That's right.
Watch through. The guy, the chosen one.
That's a name.
He came in hurt. That really stunted whatever chance there was.
Yeah.
But so the last solid cornerback that Seattle claimed was a guy named DJ Reed. So Saleh has hemorrhaged talent, and he probably Saleh himself probably thinks anything can happen with his, you know, bottom of the barrel guys. So
so what you're saying, Griff, is Isaiah Dunn is DJ Reed.
He is DJ Reed.
Yes.
It's cool though that Saleh got. I mean, it's cool that came full circle and Saleh got DJ back. You know, that's pretty dope, actually.
I'm still mad about it.
It's dope for them for the same reasons it sucks for. I mean, I wish DJ was on the team. I like the guys that they got, but I still wish DJ was on the team. He was just perfect in many, many ways.
I liked how feisty he was.
Yeah.
Poor DJ. Well, not poor DJ. He got paid.
Yeah.
Good for him.
So, but that further speaks to Seattle's MO at corner. The literally the second best cornerback season after Richard Sherman during the Carroll era belongs to DJ Reed. So, and they banked on him having a good 2021 off of 6 games of 2020. So think about how cavalier they're being, but they're being cavalier about it because they trust their development. And, you know, Carl Scott on top of it, even though he wasn't there for DJ Reed's development, Carl Scott has the reputation, and that can't be taken from him. He can develop cornerbacks, safeties. So, I hope Isaiah sticks around. I hope, you know, he doesn't have one of those false start, you know, where he gets hurt or something, or he can't get reps or something. Because I'd like to see him.
Some context with Dunn as well is Seattle is basically never playing zone. Like, the only time the corner has to play with more zone principles that I can think of off the top of my head at 3:24 a.m. is when they are in a cloud, right? So they're still rerouting and then flipping the hips to look for the deep to short, look up the two. But other than that, everything plays out like off man or from outside leverage or inside leverage, but still off man or press man.
Yeah, and even their cover 3 now, like when they're
Yeah, that's
playing
what I'm
Rip
saying.
Liz, yeah, like they're almost playing pure man now on the
It just
outside.
plays out like more efficient one rat, you know, like
Exactly. It's one rat with the ability to get hook help if the running back is in the protection.
Yeah.
So it's almost like a supercharged, cover 1, like you said, one rat. But then I still feel like it can hurt you in some ways, because what if there's a mismatch in the slot?
or what if like
losing.
McCaffrey comes out from as a fast 3 and Cody Barton has to run to him.
Sure. I mean, I don't mind Barton's speed
No, don't.
range. I really don't.
I love Barton, but
But to your point, it's like it really ceases to become cover 3 at that point. Like, because what really makes good cover 3, what makes it sustainable, is your hook defenders. So like, okay, we're getting totally sidetracked.
Yeah.
So the shell of cover 3 defines cover 3's floor, but then what defines its ceiling is the overlap in the interior with what the hook defenders are doing. That's what defines your ceiling. So
I thought what defined its ceiling was that there was 3 deep defenders.
Very funny. That's a little ironic, though, isn't it? The literal ceiling of the defense defines the floor, and then that's just semantics and language. But then, so in order for the floor to be really good, the overhangs, the slots, have to also be really good because they're picking up, right? Now, that we're saying this based off what we saw in preseason with Brooks and Barton in there. If they can provide hook overlapped and stay spaced for the running back, then it's game over, because they're gonna, yeah, in a good way, I meant. Anyway,
see, we want to talk more scheme, and that will come in the next podcast.
I like how the thing that makes us the most unhinged is cover 3, though.
Cover 3 makes people unhinged. We're not the only ones.
I don't know if you guys want to talk about this on this show or the next one that we're recording, but so is Justin Coleman the nickel?
We don't really know. That's what makes it so interesting.
Well, I guess he did get added back, but yeah, I think he is. The fact he got added back to the roster, you don't. He is, and there's tape observations for that too.
Okay.
But the guy they claimed off the waivers, the other dude, was Darryl Johnson, who, interesting, because 7th round pick of the Buffalo Bills in 2020. Scott Fitterer does a classic, it seems, trademark Fitterer move, trades a 6th round pick for him, then cuts him the next year. And interesting guy, because he is 6'6", 253 pounds, or at least was at his pro day, with basically 34-inch arms, which is really intriguing. And then you go and I briefly fast forwarded to one of these cut-ups of his highlights of college football, and he is able to drop. So he's kind of like that high-activity pass rusher, and he kind of stole the thunder of Josh, you are Onajuogu?
Onajuogu.
Onajuogu.
Yeah.
My apologies. Yeah. Who initially made the roster and looked real glitzy and fun, high activity dude. We sort of spoke about him in the instant reaction pod. And then he's come in and made the team and then has been released and then now on the practice squad. But I think Johnson's got a bit more NFL experience. He's actually played in some NFL games, and he's going to offer a similar type of stuff, but also a kind of more interesting layer of schematic variance to, if you think about your Maffeys, your Nwosus, your Taylors, having like a longer dude who can, just a bit more of a yin and yang kind of deal going on there on the edge. That's interesting to me. And I don't know. We have to see what kind of sub packages the Seahawks get into, but I feel like there's going to be more of like a 40 kind of front, like 4 down kind of pass rush grouping, including the edge group. And then there's more of like a 3-4 kind of odd front group, where you have a dropper.
Yeah.
And so to me, having like a longer 6'6" dude, that lends itself to being aggressive in a 4 down front. That being said, he does have the ability to drop too. So maybe I'm overthinking that, but something to be aware of as we move into real football.
Right.
So, Ty,
Mm.
am I right in saying that there was no surprises, or was there something that you were hoping to see and didn't, or was there something you're like, whoa, John Schneider's back on the whiskey, allegedly?
Well, I think the big one is they didn't do anything at inside linebacker.
Yeah.
They made the 2 claims. Neither of those guys play inside linebacker, and they cut all of their inside guys except for Nick Valor, who do we want to consider him an inside linebacker?
Yes,
he is. But
superstar.
Yeah. Okay, question. If Jordan Brooks and Cody Barton, knock on wood somewhere, I can't find any wood, but let's just say we knocked on wood here. If both of those guys go down in a game, obviously Valor is the one to replace it. Who is the emergency off-ball linebacker?
Hello, is this Ryan Pace?
yeah, exactly. Right.
So they did move Doncor to inside, or at least they're experimenting with that. That's one kind of option, but I don't think
he's doing the hokey cokey.
Yeah.
He's been in, he's been out, he's been in.
Right. So I don't.
I shook it all about.
Is that?
Be nice if it's been moved.
Did Pete say that in a press conference because of in out? No, whatever. It sounds like I could see Pete making a dad joke like that.
We're really similar.
But then the other kind of only answer you can kind of come up with, which they still may find a guy, is that they become a big dime team or a big nickel team where they legitimately have to put someone inside. Now, people will joke because we know exactly where most are going with this. The guy who has more experience on Seattle's roster, literally playing linebacker, not in the box as a safety, but literally aligned as a linebacker in the box, is Ryan Neal, not Jamal Adams. So they might say, okay, Ryan, you're kind of like our Mike or Jack now. And with keeping Jamal in there. Now, the thing, though, is they just may not stay in their base package very often.
Right.
So Neal might be the default answer, but then their real solution is to spending more time in dime, more time in nickels, to where you still have the right guys in the right places, because you don't want to have Neal to be in that position too long, because it's not just skill set. It's like you have to literally know what all the checks are and the alignments are and everything, and it's like so much of it is the mental part of it. Yeah, Neal's like barely 210, but he's actually played it, Now, in a perfect world, you'd have Jamal's skill set in there because he's 215, 220.
They are going to do that.
They are.
I know you're trying to push back on the. Well, it
so
feels like you're trying to push back
Jones
on the
exists.
Adams as a linebacker.
Josh Jones too, yeah.
So, what we spies
He's still
at
going to
training
be an
camp.
overhang though in a lot of that, I predict.
Spies at training camp have revealed that Jamal Adams is playing as the guy in the box. Now, we got a question actually from
box.
You wouldn't know a box if it was looking you in the face.
Ooh, big burns here on Seattle Overload tonight.
We had a question on this topic from Scott V. Myers, who has supported the pod a lot. So thank you, Scott. And he's asked, question gents. We're all gentlemen. From an alignment perspective, assuming the same coverage is called against the same offensive formation, would dime and nickel look identical? And so there's stuff to unpack there in that, yes, they would, but it depends kind of on the front, which Scott didn't refer to. And what I think is when they're big nickel, it will be what the Fangio and, the Staley tree have called penny, where the they come out in 3-3-5 personnel, but Seattle is in big nickel personnel as well. And so the front is a bare front. So there's 5 guys down at the line of scrimmage. You have your 2 outside linebackers, and then you have your 3 interior dudes covering the guard and the center, and the guards and the center. And then you have 2 off-ball inside backers where you have basically Jordan Brooks in the A gap, and then Adams, as Griffin said in his correct pushback, Adams will occasionally be going, across to the slot, or, they'll sky him, but then also you can drop the weak outside linebacker and you can have Adams playing a hook or in the strong hook. It depends on what flank you're getting from the offense. But if it's and in that big nickel look, Conjay Diggs is kind of the nickel in terms of he would handle a fast slot receiver. He'd match up with him. And then Josh Jones, he's the deep safety, but also, he can play like hard quarter. He can come down. There's a lot of loads of options within that. And then Ryan Neal still to come back. And as Griffin said, Neal had already played that last year. Now, in big dime, Seattle ain't going to be playing a 5 front. They'll be in a 4 front, so it'll look different in that sense. So you're losing an outside linebacker. You're gaining your actual true nickel back. So you're gaining Justin Coleman or Kobe Bryant, depends who you want. And then you're having Adams or Ryan Neal or Josh Jones in the box. But then Diggs is back deep, and you might have another dude back deep as well, like Josh Jones or Jamal Adams or Ryan Neal. But one of them basically plays the box. But it's more of a 4-2 look, whereas the big nickel thing we're talking about, the penny thing, that looks like a 5-1 or a 5-2 or a 5-3, depending on the coverage. And it has Jamal Adams in the box sometimes, but also not always in the box because it depends on the coverage.
And then even if he is in the box, it's for coverage purposes.
Yes.
It's
all about the coverage. The front is to facilitate the coverage, and you can run a variety of coverages while being aware of what your front can do. So, for instance, if you're going to send 4, well, then they might send the strong outside linebacker, and then to facilitate that, Adams might play weak. But if you're going to play cover 3, they might send the weak outside linebacker and drop Adams into a strong hook or weak hook. It depends on the flank. So
right.
I don't know. There will be that's not a sentence. There will be examples of this, and we'll be tweeting about them. So Denver, that'll be the thing they unveil against Denver, though, and it's the thing they've been trying to protect, even though the Rams did it all the time, and it's so obvious to do it.
Right. The only other aspect I would include to answer Scott's question is that while they still might be doing the same things, right, with assuming same formation, same coverage, but different personnel, being in different personnel lends it toward doing different things, even if you're going to do the same thing. So that means you might want to use that expectation disguised differently, thus changing the alignment. But the way it plays out might be the same as it would otherwise. It's just you're wanting, the right skill sets on the same types of offensive players.
The big thing with having Adams in the box is it's easier to blitz him.
That's the other thing. And that's where I think having him be essentially the nickel in regular big nickel as the star, the way that Zimmer used Harrison Smith, is that provided it's not not Tyreek Hill, but provided that it's any quality slot receiver, but it doesn't have to be a Pro Bowler, having that safety there to where he can handle a lot of the stuff or play say the vertical hook in half quarter. But like you said, you're still, if he's in the overhang, then those slot blitzes that you open that up, like you're saying.
Great point. Because then in that instance, for the listener, in that instance, you have Diggs capping Adams. you have Josh Jones back deep, and you can play too high. You can rotate. If we're talking real basic, the line is in an over. Well, say the line's even in bare, right? You can slant the line. You can send Adams off the edge. You can slide Diggs down to cap the slot, play seam curl flat in the 3 deep, 3 under coverage. You can put Josh Jones back into the middle of the field. So that's a great point, Griff. It's easier. Like Adams is good enough, I think, to blitz an inside gap, like a B gap or an A gap. But it's way easier to send off the edge of safety, and really the way offenses work, it is more advantageous in most situations.
Sure. And like that has to be something that they need to present as an option to the offense where he could go, even if he gets zero production, because it's about establishing tendencies to dictate to offenses to protect a certain way. And then from there, if you establish a tendency, it's like your anvil, and then your tendency breakers become your hammer, so that you can play with them. So like Adams will blitz, not a crazy amount, I suspect, but he'll blitz definitely. But his production doesn't necessarily matter isolated to him. It's what it's doing for the over.
You're establishing the blitz. You have to establish the blitz.
Yeah. You need anchor points, because you need defensive anchor points where, like Jamal in the slot, you have to account for him, but then also you have to account for whoever the best edge rusher is on the field. Then you also have to account for who the best interior rusher on the field is, so that they're sliding accordingly. And then you send the blitzers either opposite or with it. And then, that allows you to get matchups on the other side of it. That means your second edge rusher gets a advantageous, one-on-one matchup now if they're prioritizing resources to,
So week to week, like depending on opponent and depending on matchups, we are likely to see a lot of variance, which again is why we've said in the past that Clint Hurt is really going to be spinning a lot of plates to not like get too far away from, hey, this is like what we're good at, this is our base, because multiplicity can lead to kind of a wishy-washy lack of identity. It can also be great, so it's going to be very exciting to see play out. The final thing, and I can't believe we haven't mentioned it, is our guy. Well, firstly, our guy, Josh Johnson, unfortunately waived injured. We didn't see him all preseason. No one had asked where he was. It's a shame that it didn't work out for him. Hopefully he's okay. He can still play football. And more importantly, his quality of life is all right. And hopefully he'll get another shot next year. But the other our guy from the 2021 preseason was Myles Adams. And he has just continued his upwards trajectory. And he made the roster. And the guy he beat out basically through injury, LJ Collier, landed on the injured reserve list with a hurt elbow. So great for Myles Adams. Very, very sort of clicked in terms of being a disruptive player. He sort of last season was technically refined, but he wasn't quite disruptive into the backfield. This year he sort of continued, slossing it all together, and he's ripping through into the backfield. He's reading the center slide and then working his one-on-one really nice, and it's just beautiful to see.
Yeah. I mean, first, like in breaking him down to his respective parts, like first step get off is there. He has like a compact but explosive body, and like, low to the ground naturally, like he gets deep into his stance, he's got hands and everything. Like his first step is simply too much for most guards to be able to handle in the league. He's just faster than them out of their stance, but then he's got weight to throw behind it. So that means he's got speed and he's got strength. So that means power, right? But then he's also got hands like we talked about. But then even from there, like you said, he's reading the protection, knowing what's going on in front of him helps him anticipate and play even faster. And then even even if he's not getting into the backfield early, he's somehow getting to the backfield late as well, just because his block disengaged from a face-up position where he's lateral and he's not able to get upfield really. He still finds a way. And then once he does get going north and south, he gets north and south in a hurry too. So it's just, and then he's got agility too. So it's like you almost think you're describing a Pro Bowler here. The only thing is like he's got traits, he's got skills. I hope he gets a lot of playing time. There's probably 200 snaps for him to play, I think, this year.
Yeah, so you think, because I'd have thought, like, Shelby Harris, Al Woods, Poona Ford, Quinton Jefferson. Harris, Jefferson, Ford can all be that kind of rush 3 technique, right?
Yeah.
So for Adams to get playing time ahead of them, that feels difficult. I don't know. It'd be interesting to see where he slots in. Having a rotation going is never a bad thing, but how they manage that, how they work the packages, where they see Adams fitting in as best, I'm interested. He even might be the nose tackle in the even front like sub package world because of his quickness, and it's going to be interesting.
Yeah. So I suppose one of the main things to look for is his path to more snaps. Does he straight up climb or leapfrog Quinton Jefferson on the depth chart in all packages? So like that's because Quinton Jefferson, we know what he is. He's a solid rotational pass rusher who can give you some run defense in the right context, right? Like he's not purely just he's not Rasheem Green sized. He's 290, 295. He's not.
He got pushed around a bit.
And he always has been. But I'm just saying his weight still allows you to kind of like, he can factor a little bit in the rotation if you're trying to find snaps for guys. So Myles Adams also being a 290, 295 guy, although built differently. It's like, we know what Quinton is. He's a okay, decent pass rusher who can really flash at times. So given that we know we're so clear on what Quinton is, if Myles Adams leapfrogs him in essentially his first real year of action, that would be a pretty significant thing. So that's something to watch for. And if he doesn't, okay, Quinton Jefferson's still a solid player. But so that's kind of how I'm viewing Myles for this year.
So I guess that's the cuts dealt with. The 3 inside linebacker situation is slightly concerning, but they'll have to do a deal. I think if there were a bad injury, Tanner Muse is on the practice squad. He'll probably be a game day active for his special teams ability, and then John Rattigan is on PUP, so he's still to come back. But I mean, also what we're talking about here is Brooks and Barton are so good that a depth piece is very unlikely to be able to replace them. So anyway, until next time, thank you for listening, watching. Please like, subscribe, 5-star review. I'm going to get quicker at this. Follow the podcast, follow us. Exciting news is still coming, so don't miss out on that. And we appreciate it.